Peace, and welcome to another episode of Elevate the Mic. And I'm your host, Max Mupese. Today, I'm joined by a guest who's a public figure in Montreal who has a lot of respect and a lot of love. People show him a lot of love and respect. One thing I could tell you about this man, he's not only a community leader, he's an entrepreneur, a family man. Something I learned recently that you guys may learn about, he's also a barbecue grill specialist. You may be learning about barbecue today. Let us all welcome Brian Smith. How you feeling, man?
How you doing, Max? How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm
Hey,
great.
people out there, how you doing?
I'm in great spirits, man.
Same here. So, we're wrapping up, coming down to the end of 2024.
Mhm.
And thanks for having me here. I've been, checking out the show, and I feel honored to be here in the seat right now.
Amazing.
All right.
If you had one word to describe your year of 2024, what would that word be and why?
Wow, I would say a lot of challenges, and I would say on the physical aspect because beginning of the year, right before the talent show that we'll talk about before, I had an accident and I ripped up my knee. I tore my quad tendon, so that's surgery the night before my talent show. So this year has been a year of healing and stuff like that. So, kind of like, try to slow down, but I'm a person, I'm always on the go.
Yeah.
But, also it's been a year of reflection too as well, because unfortunately on the sad side, a lot of friends, close friends, have transitioned. So, anytime that happens, you have to sit back and say, you know what, reflect and say, you know what, every day you get up, every day I'm able to do what I want to do. I give grace to God and just do the best that I could do for each and every day.
That's it, man. A heart full of gratitude.
Yeah.
Keeps you in the right spirit and the right positive attitude as well.
Exactly.
Now let's take it back to the early beginnings. You were born in NDG, specifically on Walkley Street, right?
I was born on Walkley. So people out there, you heard about Walkley Street. I was actually born on Walkley. Walkley used to be a St. Catherine Booth. It used to be a birthing center.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born there many, many years ago. So when people say they grew up on Walkley, I was born on Walkley, original Walkley, man.
Shoot, man. And how was Walkley in the 80s? Because it's
boy,
interesting.
80s. Well, 80s, Walkley's 80s. And when people say Walkley, right, it's usually a particular section from Côte St. Luc, maybe going up to Summerled, maybe going up to Monkland, people who know the area.
Yeah.
But, it's just, apartments are there, people are there, Listen, I live good with everybody. So, when people say, oh, yeah, Walkley's rough and stuff like that, I think it's just an image that people want to put it as a negative thing. But no, everything was good. I had friends that lived in the so-called rough section and stuff. But it's just part of living, you know what I mean? I mean, back in the days, you walk down a certain part of Walkley and, people would be out there, the music would be playing. But it was always a nice multicultural environment, which I love. You know what I mean? A person's a person, everybody has their stories, their backgrounds, people who were like new immigrants, things like that come there. But it was a melting pot. But I never looked at it as a negative thing. It's just people being people, and my parents coming from Jamaica, we didn't live on Walkley, we lived on Fielding, but we had friends, families who lived on Walkley, and it's just go down the street, so it is what it is, live the life to love the life to live. That's all it is.
Mind your business, and that's it.
That's it.
So one thing also that's interesting is that you played football. You played baseball and football, but you also got a scholarship, a D1 scholarship from playing football, right?
Yeah. So baseball was my favorite sport. Even to this day, it's my favorite sport. But I was very good in hockey. I was very good in baseball. Took up football very late because back then the high schools did not have football teams, the public schools.
Okay.
So I ended up playing football at Sun Youth. And I loved it. I loved the physicality of it. Those of you who know, like Lawrence Taylor, LT, number 56 for the New York Giants, was my favorite player. And I played defensive line, outside linebacker, played at Sun Youth, was very, very good. Went to Vanier College.
So they had to think twice before getting to your line, like defensive line.
It's very aggressive, like get hit and stuff like that. But as I said, in high school, the public schools didn't have that, so I went to play at Sun Youth. After that, got recruited to go to Vanier, then got a scholarship, a full scholarship to Boston University, paid for my schooling, right? So that I graduated and stuff like that. So, something I was very, very, honored to do it because, going to the school in the States, people were paying to go to school is very, very expensive, so it didn't have that financial burden as far as, paying for your education. And Boston in itself, it was a very interesting city, very racist city,
Right.
but a very interesting city and stuff like that. But I get, I got to meet people there that I still keep into contact until this day through Facebook and stuff like that. So it was a beautiful experience. I could say it was a beautiful experience.
I like that. Speaking of the word experience, what would you say is a lesson or skill that you keep in mind that you still keep till this day from playing football?
Hey, the collective, the team, right? If it's Canadian football, it's 12 players. American football, it's 11 players. On one particular play, all 11 guys have to be working towards one common goal. So the quarterback can't do the play by himself. The running back can't do it by himself because he needs the offensive line to block for him. So I always try to use that collective spirit for anything that I do. How can I, as the person, succeed within the team? So the collective spirit. Unfortunately, in the world today, I see everybody wants to do everything by themselves, and it's not the best way, so team first, individual second, it should be good. And that's some of the things too. I also say growing up, my parents always try to have that family environment even with extended family.
Okay.
Family first. It's very, very important.
I like that you mentioned how a lot of, in today's society, there's this individualistic mindset of like, okay, I got to get it on my own. I got to figure out a way to, be the first one to do it, or even to carry the torch for the most part. Would you say it's something that has increased due to social media, or even how would you describe it in your own way?
I think it's increased more because, as I said, we're exposed to so much more, right? And you see, particular whether we're individuals, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, and they're being successful and they're doing this.
Right.
But in most cases, there's a team behind that person. But as I said, if you've never really been exposed to that team setting, how do you process that? Because all you're just seeing is all these individuals being successful, not understanding, the blood, sweat, and tears behind creating something. I mean, we're in here too, that, we got a team of staff of technicians who are working, putting something out. It's very hard to do something by yourself. So, I always tell people, team first. And as I said, unfortunately, what I see is a lot of the youth, they're the ones who grab up all this information and they figure, I'm going to be the first one. I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to do this. And what happens, you don't see the results, you get frustrated and you give up. And that's also causes where, you see in our world today, a lot of, mental health issues, people get, depressed and stuff like that, because what they see on social media, it's not necessarily reality.
That's it.
And now we're bringing in artificial intelligence. It's stepping it up to another game. So, what we need in our society is people who are critical thinkers. You're going to look at something and say, what? Okay, this looks nice, but maybe want to look behind it, and other ways of doing things. It's very, very important.
That's powerful. I want to take it back to your early beginnings as well. You were a promoter at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
I used to be promoted. I mean, I still promote now, but on the social side, the community side. But I was involved doing promotions. Big up Gary T. We used to do, brought the Fugees here. Did a lot of behind the scenes with a lot of hip hop shows. I used to do a lot of stuff in the reggae industry here in Montreal.
Yes.
Under a name of Vibe Time Entertainment. So so I've seen a lot where, what it takes to put on an event, what it takes to put on a successful event, and being successful as far as even on a financial aspect too as well, because sometimes we see a lot of these events that, there's a lot of people, but you look at the end of the day now, that to say the math is not mathing because you're spending $2 to make one, and that's the reason why I kind of like branched out into doing different things, because when the math ain't mathing, I don't like to like waste my time. And then also too, I don't want to lose friendships because there's
Yeah.
you know, with the money thing. So, you know, I just took a step off from the promotion game back then,
Mhm.
and then I started going into the mixtape game,
Okay.
which was very lucrative back in the day.
Interesting. So mixtapes. And who was the first hip hop artist you were listening to, and what made you drawn to that culture?
Well, you know, so if we're going back now, so who did the song there? Hip hop, hip
Oh, that's a good
hip hop. You
question.
don't stop the rap.
Grandmaster. I think it's
Grandmaster.
Grandmaster.
Well,
Yeah.
that was the first song, right? Because
Yes.
I grew up in that era now when, you know, when hip hop or rap started to explode on the scene, right?
Mhm.
You know, going back to the, you know, Run DMC and the Adidas and all of that type of stuff. And
Mhm.
like any youth was drawn to that culture, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, wearing the Kangol hats. But the thing with me now, because within, you know, I had a lot of, you know, come from a Jamaican household, Jamaican friends,
Yes.
I was more into the reggae thing. So I had, like, you know, the Kangol hats and the Clarks and the stuff like that. But, you know, we're just caught up in that culture. And there was like a lot of energy, positive energy. I remember going downtown and seeing, you know, a lot of breakdance shows and things like that. So it was a very cool time in Montreal, you know. And you hear about, you know, I mean, Brother Duke Eatman and Butcher T and stuff like that. Like those guys, we used to look up to them. You know, I mean, I went to school briefly with Duke and stuff like that. He was always into the music and stuff like that. Me, I would say I wasn't, like, you know, deep into the music because I was a sports guy. So the sports was my thing. But I was always, you know, back in the day, you know, have the cassettes, listening to the radio, press record on your little box, and then you could go back and listen to it another time, you know.
Hey.
So it's analog. I don't know people, you know, if the kids out there can really, you know, relate to it, but that's how we how we got our music. And we'd get music from, you know, families and friends. You know, somebody who would go to New York and they would record something off the radio in the WBLS and stuff like that, and bring it back and listen to it, and then everybody would make copies of it and stuff like that. So that's how we would get, you know, our introduction into the hip hop and the stuff like that, and the music, you know, and who had the latest, you know, not necessarily mixtapes. I believe they used to call them pause tapes, because it's like the radio, hit pause, let it release, record it again, and that's how we got the music. And it spread just by people just duplicating cassettes.
When I think of analog, I think of patience, man. Like, you had to be patient to
well,
let that thing work.
It's just this. Listen, everything is just the sign of the times back then. You know what I mean? It's like you're not even thinking about it. Your patience. You know, we look at society today, right, where you're driving and you need to go to a place. Okay, so you're gonna put on your phone now the GPS and get there.
True.
Where back in the day, now you got to drive somewhere. You got to, like, you go to the gas station, buy one of these maps that open up. So figuring now, I would be driving now and looking at a map,
right?
You know,
yeah, you don't think of that.
You know, people, and then, you know, and then somebody calls me. Okay, you know what? I don't have my cell phone. Oh, I got a beeper at the time. Okay, I look at my beeper. Oh, it's there. Oh, now I got to find a phone booth at 25 cents and call that person. But that's what life was in the past. You know, so, you know, I mean, what we have now, everything is at our disposal, and it's only, and you know, so a society and technology, it's getting better, right? I just mentioned about artificial intelligence. You know, power of technology is there to make life easier for people, but, you know, I've gone through those things, so I could relate. You know, so that generation that I grew up with, we've seen a lot.
Interesting. Now I want to touch on the fact that you're a cultural connector, a social entrepreneur, a capacity builder. When did you realize that you wore all of those hats?
My God, you know what? When did I realize that? You know what? When I was writing a grant proposal, and the agent told me, "Mr. Smith, you know, you're a cultural connector, you're a social entrepreneur." I mean, they gave me this title, so I said, you know what? And it sounds cool. You know, this is what I do. You know, social entrepreneur, as far as, you know, with the financial literacy work that I do. The cultural connector, I mean, I organize a lot of different, you know, cultural shows, educational shows, things like that. I do a Canada Day event. I used to do these pancake breakfasts. I do this talent show, bringing people together. And that's my main thing, is to say, you know what, I guess God gave me a gift as somebody to go out and get information and bring people together and try to empower people. You know, it's a struggle sometimes, but, you know, just What I think something that I don't like to see is people who are in challenging situations and they don't have access to information. So one of my things is to bring the information to them and try to help them get from point A to point B. That's what I could do. Unfortunately, sometimes too, there's a lot of things why people don't take those steps going from point A to point B.
Right.
But we have to empower the community. Also, too, is that not everybody in our society today has the same access or the same resources to get things done.
Okay.
So even those who are in challenging situations, you got to pull up your pants, pull up your socks, and get to work and get things done, because nobody out there is going to come and save you. That's something that I've seen, right? That you could have great ideas, this and that, but if you don't have something that's going to disrupt society,
right,
then you got to push hard, you got to grind, you got to connect, you got to make full use of your resources and stuff like that, and you got to make sacrifices too. Because we want everybody wants to be successful, but to get there, you got to sacrifice sometimes. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Got to have that entrepreneurial, even pretty much the independent spirit of things. Like,
you got to, and whether you're in the private sector or even in the nonprofit sector, I think a lot of nonprofit organizations, they're money managers, but we need people who are innovators to do things differently and change up and adapt to society. Things need to be improved on, and I like to see that. Those are things that kind of get me up every morning to say, what can I do different, and what I did yesterday, how could I make it better for today? And those are the small things that keeps myself motivated.
Got it. Staying in motion at
That's
all
it.
times.
Keep it moving.
That's
Keep
it.
it moving.
So speaking of which, what's the biggest misconception most people have about entrepreneurship these days?
I believe everybody thinks that it's, once you make a little bit of money that you've made it, but you've got to put in, now that you make it, how are you going to stay relevant and keep there? You got to keep on, you have to keep on reinvesting what you've made into yourself to keep it going. Because sometimes, you have a great idea. People just maybe sometimes get comfortable. But for me, I think you always got to stay hungry. As an entrepreneur, you got to stay hungry because there's competition. You have an idea, somebody will see it. Hey, I can make that better. And it gets duplicated, or, people try to replicate it. So, and then I said, with technology, it's so easy for people to, I would say this, with technology, you don't even have to even depend on people who you're around within your particular city. Things are international. There's people who have lost jobs because, I could send certain work to be done in a certain other country,
right,
because people are exchanging information electronically and stuff like that. So, anybody who's an entrepreneur, I say this, you got to stay hungry, you got to stay focused, and you have to have a passion for what you want to do.
I want to double down on the part where you say and staying hungry. It reminds me of something Magic Johnson once said in his book, how every time he reaches a new level, or every time he has a new challenge, or every time he has a new opportunity, he looks at it from ground zero level, right?
Yeah, that's
so you
it.
look at it from, okay,
That's
I'm starting today, next year. This way you don't necessarily, you're not content with what you have, and you don't stay stagnant, rather, instead of being content.
And sometimes too, it's good that you have, a coach, or we're talking about a team behind you, because here's the thing too. Sometimes there's somebody within your team who is the one, or the person who is the high performer or super motivated, but you always need somebody behind them to make sure you do this, somebody who's a bodybuilder. Actually, I don't want to use bodybuilders because all bodybuilders take steroids now, whatever. That's fake stuff. But the thing is, the fact that somebody's going to be there to push you and guide you and make sure you're going to do what you want to get done. Because, as I said, we live in a world where there's so many distractions, and people pull you in this direction and pull you in that direction. And sometimes you lose focus. So you got to, find strategies to keep your eyes on the prize.
Speaking of eyes on the prize, tell us about the Monnaie talent show and how the idea came about.
So the Monnaie talent show is going to be taking place on February 22nd over at the Oscar Peterson Concert Hall. That's Loyola Campus, Concordia University. So this is going to be our 15th anniversary celebration.
Congrats.
The Monnaie talent show was an idea of myself, Ken Dog, Malik Shahid. I used to have I still have a financial literacy program, which is called Money. And just one day, we were just had a meeting, and I remember that before that, we'll go back in the day, Gary T used to do a talent show.
Right.
And I just brought up and said, hey, why don't we do a talent show? Because we were looking for ways how we could kind of bring the youth together and give some exposure to the to the financial literacy aspect of things. And I remember Gary says, no, people don't they're not into talent shows anymore and stuff like that. But I said, no, we're going to do it. I said, and it was a hit, right? Because I think what was missing too is that there are really no avenues or platforms for young artists to be there and present themselves in a form, like in a competitive setting too as well. Because I'm a person, I believe competition brings the best out in most people.
Yes.
So, hey, I said, we did it the first year. It was successful. People liked it. And a lot, what I really appreciated is a lot of the artists themselves came back to us and said, you know what, it was great because the location was in a professional setting. We had the sound, the recording, everything was there. So I just listened to the people. I think my job as a promoter is I listen to what the people want, and I give it to them. And I said, you know what, if they're going to pay $20 to come to your show, I'm going to give them $100 worth of service. So just, you got to give more than they're going to receive. And they're the people who are going to sell the show. So each year we don't really we promote the show, but we always got that support. What I would like to do in the future is maybe in the next couple of years is kind of maybe bring the show downtown, and I want to kind of bridge the gap into the French community, because some people figure that because of the location of where it is, it's only for English artists, which is not the case. But that's something, I'd like to work on and, find ways that we could bring it, have a branch with the French and the English recording artists in the city.
I went to the one last year, 2024. It was amazing. One word I'd describe it: amazing, very well organized.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed about the event was that every artist, well, a majority of the artists, their performance was so so superb to a point where I would get chills at one point. I'm like, damn, it's like, well, how'd you find these artists? How did they connect?
They come to me. I mean, we do some scouting and stuff like that, but people have heard about the show and they said, hey, yeah, you're going to perform in Money. One of the things is that when we speak to the artists, we tell them, we want you to bring your best,
right?
And so there's expectations that they're going to deliver high level performances. So that's why when people come to the show and they say, oh my goodness, wow. I said, oh, I never seen these artists before and things like that. So we want to set a standard that is high, and we got to hit it this year. And the people who come to the show this year, when they see the show again this year, we're going to wow them again. Definitely, because it's been 9 months in the planning. So even when I had my little accident last year, I said, you know what? For the 15th anniversary, I'm going to present something very, very, very special. And, I have a good team around me too as well. I have Mr. Boom. I've got Winston Murray, Janice Sinclair, and, support from TD and Canadian Heritage. So we're going to put on something that's going to be really, really, really nice.
Shout outs to the whole team. Shout outs to you guys. Now, if somebody asks you, why did you decide to bring this information back to Montreal instead of, because you also spent some time in the States?
Yeah, I was in Boston. Yeah. You know what? Well, I graduated and then, I came back to Montreal and, I'm just going to say, a lot of people figured, oh, you're going to school in the States, you're going to stay in the States and settle down and stuff like that. But things didn't really materialize that way. Came back to Montreal. I found a job. I was working at the Protestant School Board of Greater Montreal, which is now the English Montreal School Board. And I just fell into a job working there. And then I was working for Marriott Food Management Services at Concordia University. I was actually working as a chef at the time in the kitchen, right? But because the money was good and you could get free food, right? So I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this for a while. I'm going to do this for a while. Do it for a while. People say, oh, you just came back from university, or you have a degree. You have a degree in business and sociology. So why are you working at Concordia? I said, well, you know what? It's good. And I was always doing all these little hustles too around the side of the time too as well. I just came back from university. I figured, you know what? I give myself a break, whatever. And it was a good thing. Even at working at Food Management Services, The guy promised me, you know what? Yeah, work here a year, then you're gonna get a job in management, food management, and hotel man and stuff like that. But it never materialized, because I've always been a person. I always take when opportunities come, I'll jump to it, And as I said, I was a young guy, and I started working on films. I was working as a movie extra and stuff like that. So opportunities, and you get to meet people when you do these new things. You know what I mean? So I've always, and I have that. I call it the exploratory spirit about me. I like to explore. I like to go and visit and meet people and talk to people because that's where you find out networking. A lot of networking. And I tell you, I mean, in my life, I've had 2 job interviews in my life.
Oh wow!
Only two. A lot of the stuff that has happened is just through networking. You get to meet people and stuff like that. So that's how it is. It's the business.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's how it is. Just there's 2 interviews. That's it. One, and even some of them too. Like the interviews were just a formality because I think something I've always been able to convince people and talk to people. Like come with a clean heart, a conscience, and people know that I'm a hard worker and I'm passionate about stuff that I do. That's one thing that people could never say, that I'm not a hard worker, and and a lot of these things too come from my football, because that person, your buddy on the line playing next to you,
right?
If he's not giving his all, it's gonna hurt you. So we all got to pull together. That's how it is.
Shoot, and it makes me. It reminds me of the saying from Clarence Avon. Late great Clarence Avon, rest in peace, Black Godfather. He said, "I don't have friends. I don't have problems. I have friends." Could you attest to that, and could you give us an example of how networking changed your life at a certain point in your life?
Wow, networking changed my life. Oh, you know what? I mean, I'm always networking, so I'm not gonna say that it changed my life, but I've just always I've never been shy to go speak to somebody, or even in a room and somebody's doing something, or somebody who's somebody who's successful, and go speak with them and hey, how you doing? How this, introduce yourself, ask them certain ideas, take a business card, follow up with a phone call. It's I don't know if it's lucky, but it's just something that I've always been successful as far as connecting with people, because that's how successful, even we're talking about businesses, profit, non-profit, is the relationships that you build with people, right? So you see that in the world today, bigger companies are buying out smaller companies and things like that.
Right.
It's tough for the small businessman to really make it in today's world, because at the end of the day, there's some big conglomerates at the top, unless you're coming out with something or a new technology that's going to disrupt things. You know what I mean? So, it's so important that, if you see something and you want to get somewhere in life, don't be scared to go and, speak to a person who's in that field, network, volunteer, get information, and use that to motivate yourself. There's nobody's coming here, as I said, nobody's coming here to save you, right? The people who are successful, pass information, but everybody's still on the grind. People don't want to give up their space, their market share. It's tough out there.
The Canadian Foundation for Economic Education, which is the CFEE.
Yeah.
Tell us about your contribution to this foundation.
Well, I started there in 2015. And I stopped working there actually since 2024. So I'm not there right now, because they had some budget cutbacks and stuff like that, and they let me know. But once again, opportunities seem to just follow with me. So now I'm doing a lot of consulting work with a group called Groupe 3737. I'm still working with the Carrefour, jeunesse-emploi, Côte-des-Neiges, and I'm doing a lot more consulting work with other nonprofits across Canada and even internationally. So people seem to find out that if you're working with Brian Smith, you're going to be working with somebody who's going to make sure he's going to get the job done for you. So, I guess everything has its time. The foundation was a great place to, once again, to network too as well, because I've met a lot of amazing people at the foundation, but also with my job, I met a lot of people in business, in community, who I still keep in contact with today, today. So, as I said, you know, the mindset growing up, right, as a teen was to say, you know, and people maybe think, you know what, you're going to go work for one company for your whole life. Doesn't happen. You know, you got to be able to make moves and pivot when, you know, as I said, the job at CFEE, it wasn't a bad split, but you know, at the same time, opportunities are there. So I've always put myself, you know, you never know when that day is going to come where, you know what, you might lose a job,
Right.
you might get fired. So you have to be prepared and also have something else going on. You know, and I push that entrepreneurial spirit, because if you have a talent, and I believe I'm talented. I know I'm talented.
Yes.
If you have a talent, people will find you. If you're a good cook, right, you make good food, people will find you. If the food tastes good, people will find you. So if you got good product, people will find you. Sometimes you have to find ways to sell your services, but if you got skills, people will find you.
Got it. You heard that. I hope you guys heard that. So don't give up on your dream of being a barbecue specialist.
That's right. Vibe Time Cooking Network. That's it. Ribs. I'm a rib specialist. Smoked ribs, that is. Smoked ribs.
That's amazing. So, by the way, congratulations on your Money podcast. And what would you like to highlight on that podcast specifically?
Well, the podcast is a project, a pilot project. So what we're looking to do is find a way to bring social media, once again, awareness, not necessarily targeting youth, but to the general public. And it's just, the name of it's called Money Matters. And it's just kind of everyday talk about money situations that people, you know, that's on their mind. So, you know, just recently now, you know, Trump got reelected. So what happened?
Right, the market,
Everybody's right?
Everybody's talking about
cryptocurrency. Zoom pushed up and it went back down, and they've now in January, when he gets instated again or reinstated, you know, they're looking at people saying that crypto is going to blow up again and stuff like that. So we have spoken with a crypto specialist. I had a talk. His name is Clark Cadet. I spoke with this young lady named Layla Wilson. She's somebody who wants to become a sports agent, and the world of college athletics has, especially in the States, has shifted so much because now players are getting paid, right? They have a thing which is called name, image, and likeness, NIL deals. So it's changed things up, you know? So we just want to be talking about everyday stuff that is on the minds of people and talk about it. You know, we talk about, you know, the investments and budget and stuff like that, but we want to find creative ways to connect with people and make them feel at ease to just talk about everyday money situations.
Amazing. What do you like to see? Well, what would you like to see in young artists? And what would you actually, let me rephrase that. What would you like to see young artists focus more on, like in the future?
Learn the business. Learn the business. You're in the show business industry. You learn the business part, because even myself too as well. You know, listen, as I told you, I used to sell mixtapes, right? So I would sell one mixtape for $10. That means I sell it, I got $10 in my pocket. Now the whole music industry now, how do you make money off streams? You know, off the shows. You have all these different technologies and with streaming services. And you know, I'm watching something the other day, some DJ who has a pop-up thing in London, England, in Brixton, and he's saying, well, you can't make money off streams on Instagram, but you could do it on TikTok,
right?
And all of these things. I mean, as I said, that's not my thing, but I would tell anybody who wants to be an artist and you're serious and you want to monetize on your art, understand how the business works.
Yes. Because
at the end of the day, I'll say this: the big record labels, they still want to control things, right? They don't want to, you know, and they were controlling things from way back, where you'd see a lot of artists be like, you know, necessarily who were financially illiterate, and they were taken advantage of. So empower yourself, inform yourself, and understand the business aspect of the music industry, but also with life too as well. Understand how banks make money. Banks make money off us. They take our money and lend it to other people, right? And they charge us interest, all that stuff. Understand it, and it's a simple game too as well. Yeah, something we spoke about before, the psychology of money and stuff. Yeah, and why people invest, and people want to what they call it, hitch up their ride to a rising star when a stock is going up. But once that stock has left and you want to hold on to it, most cases, once you hitch onto it, it's going to start to drop. And then you jump off, and then it drops even further, panic selling, you know. And people have to understand that the stock market is manipulated. There's manipulation in there. So, you know, you have to understand everything is a game. So if you understand how the game is played, then you could see how the game can benefit yourself.
And I agree with what you're saying, specifically the part where you said, take your personal life the same way. Well, understand the business side the same way you could understand in your personal life, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And if you neglect it on your personal life, then it's obviously going to transfer in your business.
Yeah, and in most cases, a lot of you know, budding entrepreneurs, that personal finance is caught up in the business finance too as well.
Yeah,
that's reality, you know. So you keep them separate. So you have to understand how this money game works. It's very, very important.
Absolutely. And what would you say is your proudest achievement to date?
My proudest achievement. With my business wise, you know what? My goodness. I think the talent show was, you know, work wise has been, you know, my proudest achievement, because it's something that the people look up to. And, you know, whatever I do, you know, when people in the community and people who don't know me, right, but heard of me, or they come to the show and they just come to me and they say, Mr. Smith, thank you very much. When a senior comes to me and say, thank you very much, I come out of my house once a year to come to this event, and it's on every year. So I do these things for them, you know what I mean? Because they look up to me. So, you know, one of the things I want to say too as well, I mean, like, the show has been going on for 15 years. And I tell people, you know what, because of who I am, right, I'm looking for other things to motivate me. So it's like, I don't have that same passion and fire and energy that I have putting on the talent show that I had in the past, because now it could run itself.
Right.
So if I could find other, you know, some youth and some people who want to take it over, and they can interject their own ideas to do something different, because I have other things that I'm working on too at the same time, you know. So, and that's just like anything natural. Anybody who has a business and stuff like that, you're growing it, you know, it's reached a particular level, but I have ideas for other projects, or finding ways, how can I make the talent show better? But I have other things to do. And as I said, everything is energy, you know, because you got family, you got this, you got to make time, you know, for other, you know, have to try to have a balance. So, you know, but yeah, the talent show is I'm very, very proud of, you know.
It's amazing. And when you think of today's youth, what do you appreciate most about today's youth, especially when you go to when you have your talent show, you get to see how they interact, how they move. So what are you most appreciative specifically?
Appreciative. I think the fact that, you know, just as like a simple event like that could, you know, make a difference in their lives and stuff, you know, that the discipline that they do to prepare themselves for the show. And as I said, we also try to, once the artists are chosen, we do everything we can to get them prepared for the show, but also other aspects in their lives too as well. Because one of the things with Monnaie, the talent show, is that we do provide financial literacy, we call it workshops for them too at the same time.
Right.
And we try to connect them too with other agencies that work in the field of, you know, whether music, which is like Factor Canada or Canada Council of the Arts, to expose them to resources that are there if they want to really develop themselves as an artist. You know, because people just, and it's funny too, because I just saw something in the news yesterday too as well, and it was saying that a lot of BIPOC artists don't apply for grants and subventions and things like that, because they never really see people who look like them, talk like them, that are successful getting these grants. So somewhere down the line, there's a disconnect. So, you know, there's a gap which is there. And I see that, and I said, you know what? Okay, you know what? I need to do it, because I'm kind of like in that ecosystem. I need to find ways to bridge that gap. So once call me the cultural connector.
That's it.
That's it. We're connected.
And you know how to write grants. You know what it takes to write grants.
Yeah,
So
but writing grants is one thing, but relationships, bringing the people, because at the end of the day, the person who's saying yes or no is a person. So to sit down, show people what's going to be done, the impacts, the objectives, what are going to be the deliverables, and how it's going to change the mentality of people who are going to benefit from it.
Got it.
Takes time. It takes time. Writing the grant is simple. Bringing people together is what's really important.
If you had to break down, at least in a few steps, the most important things to consider before applying for a grant, what would it be? If you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, you got to understand, one, you have to understand the needs of the community, right? What is there? You don't want to be in a position now where you're going to be duplicating, because I see a lot of duplicating. Partnerships, stakeholders, it's something like very simple. Sometimes too, the people who have the money or the funders, they don't really understand the problems in the community. So it needs to be, you have that dialogue first. But once again too, putting together a solid project, it takes time. And unfortunately, sometimes organizations only find out that there's funding available maybe 10 days before, and then you got to scramble and put something together. So something that I've always taken is that I always have on the back burner different projects or programs that can be used for various things and it can be adapted. But I've also, once again, spent a lot of time being proactive and speaking with funders even before there's a call for proposals. Because whether it be Canadian Heritage, whether it be TELUS, any agency, I call them up and I ask them, I would like to find out more about your project, your program, even though there's not a call right now. And sometimes they're themselves, oh, well, we're not, there's no call for proposals right now. And I said, I know that, but I want to prepare for the future, So it's a job. It's a job. You have to take it. It has to be strategy. You're not the only, me as the organizations I work with, and I tell them, you're not the only person applying. Just because you send in an application doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right.
So you've got to put yourself in the best position to get that grant or to get that funding. So the same way you're going to, try to, you're going out, you're trying to impress your partner. You got to do that dance and stuff like that. And unfortunately too, sometimes a lot of these organizations that get funding, it's just based on relationships that they have.
Okay.
We call it the politics or whatever of who you know. That's reality too as well. So the people on the outside, how do you get inside? You have to have a strategy.
I want to move on to this segment called If I Had the Chance To, right?
Yeah.
So that's a segment where if you had the chance to sit down with your 16-year-old self and say a few words to that person, what would you tell a 16-year-old Brian?
16-year-old Brian. Well, I would have said, you know what? When investments come your way, like Bitcoin, there's a thing called Bitcoin that's going to come your way. Make sure you invest in it. However, I was part of a Black investment group when I was in university. I was even just thinking about that today. Yeah. But a 16-year-old Brian, I would say, Brian, put a little bit more emphasis in your schoolwork, because I was a good student, but I didn't push myself.
Could have been better.
Could have been better. Could have been better, because I was like, probably like a lot of youth, is to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to be a professional baseball player or a professional football player. Good grades, because that was expected from me from my parents. But I could have done better. If I look at it now, yeah, I could have, writing, instead of like writing assignments the day off or studying for exams. I tell people this, when you're doing math, you can't study for math exams. You have to do the problems and work them out. I would be studying, go in the book and say, okay, this is how this is done, this is how this is done. And then when you get a question now with problem solving, so yeah, math is all about problem solving. So yeah, make sure, you do your homework and give 100% in everything that you're doing.
It's amazing.
Because that's what I'm expecting, when I go to work, I give 100%, just give 100% and love what you do, and respect people. I grew up in a very disciplined household, so I don't think my parents really had any problems with me. Even though I spoke back to my dad once, and that was just only one time. So,
learn your lesson.
Learn your lesson. You learn your lesson. So that's it. But just respect. Respect aunts, uncles, as I said. I grew up in a family. I have two brothers, and just the a lot of aunts and uncles, and everybody kind of looked out for each other. So that's something that I really, really appreciate.
That's great. How do you want to be remembered?
As somebody who worked hard, somebody who loved this community, somebody who just wanted to see the best for his community. And that's kind of like basically it. I'm a very very simple person. I like to see people win. I like to see my people win, because when they win, I win. And then we find ways to bring each other up. But unfortunately, we've been conditioned to say that, what, the person up top is going to control everything, and it doesn't really work, So I love to see that collective spirit. So, what, I just want to remember somebody who tried to bring people together. I always say the community consigliere and stuff like that. That's it, Just live the life to love the life to live. That's it. That's who Brian Vibe Type, Money, Beef Ribs, Cooking Network Smith is.
Hey, tell us how can people get in touch with you? Final words.
Well, I've had one cell phone number for probably 20 plus years, so I'm at 514-817-3941. You can get in touch with me on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm at the Carrefour Jeunesse-emploi Côte-des-Neiges, and it's just been that's something too. If you're working in the community, you got to be accessible for people. Somebody, the late great Mr. Noel Alexander, when I was working at the Jamaica Association, and he was telling me a story that people calling him 3 o'clock in the morning, he's got to go bail somebody out of jail and stuff like that. But I've always found that making yourself accessible, and it's tough sometimes too, because I'm married, I have a young son.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. But sometimes you have to make that sacrifice, because that person who's making that call to you 3 o'clock in the morning, they might be in a very dire situation. So boundaries, yes, and just to say that I try to make myself accessible to the people as much as possible. So like the older people, they're not going to go online, but somebody will give me a phone call. Oh, Mr. Smith, I'm calling you. I was referred by, and that phone call could change somebody's life. So it makes me feel really, really good. And I'll just give you one last example, is to say that for the talent show this year, we're going to be honoring Christella Nicholas of 514 Online.
Wow, shout out to her.
Yeah, so she's going to be winning the Edward Gay Award. And she just said that this thing, how she feels about it, it's a life-changing moment. So that's what we want to do, is create those moments where people feel good. Feel good things. As I said, 2024 has been rough. We want people to feel good and build and keep it going. Just, we don't need to deal with toxicity and all that type of stuff. We just loving environment, peaceful environment, prosperity, and growth.
And I hope you didn't forget that when 2025 we got reggae coming up.
Yeah,
so
we got something big. We have as I said, we always have something in the pot bubbling. A lot of things pot bubbling. So just keep, look out for a lot of things coming on. A lot of things coming on,
Amazing.
But they're going to be done properly.
That's it.
That's what I be. But if Brian Smith Vibe Time isn't something, it's going to be well organized. So
that's it.
That's what we want to say.
Hey, thank you for showing up and being here, Brian. First and foremost, just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you're doing for the community.
Thank you.
And you're leading by example. So
that's what we got to do. Lead by example. And, tell you this, even though you're trying to lead by example, do things positive, right? There's negative spirits out there too as well, because it's but you know what? The people who come with the negativity, all that does is make me stronger and more determined and stuff like that. And in most cases, actually not in most cases, in all cases, these are things that people fabricate. They're not coming with any truth and stuff like that.
Projecting.
Because one of the things is anything that I will say, I could say it in public. Some of the times people are the naysayers and stuff like that. You're not gonna find me in these social media debates. Well, discussions, yes, but not these back and forth arguments, because it doesn't do anything for anybody.
True.
That's it.
Man, the good comes with the bad.
That's it.
Let's just keep on thriving.
All right.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, sir. Anytime.
100%.
Mr. Max.
Appreciate you.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by 10-step formula how to get paid gigs. So if you currently at a point where you're nervous, you don't necessarily know how to get those gigs, make sure you contact me, Max Mupesse, MAXMUPESSE. There's a lot of great gems on this book, including how to get in touch with people who have experience in the music business, how to network after an event, how to do certain things that are going to make your life, how to do things that are going to make your career even better. So make sure you contact me.
10 steps formula. Get paid.
I'ma always win.